Okay, campfire story time. Once there was a woman who lived in a small house built out of mirrors. The mirrors weren't fancy, they were warped like those carnival ones. Some stretched, some squashed, some cracked a little at the corners. She'd grown up in that house, staring into those mirrors that said the same things over and over. Too much. Not enough. Wrong shape. Wrong voice. Wrong fire. Everywhere she walked, the mirrors followed. When she tried something new and messed up, 10 mirrors whispered, "See? You can't do anything right." When she caught a glimpse of her own face, the glass leaned in and hissed, "Who do you think you are?" So she learned survival skills. She walked small so she wouldn't hit the glass. She apologized for breathing so the whispers would stay low. She memorized where every mirror was, like a dispatcher with a city map, so she could slide past without looking too long. On the outside, it looked like she was just low confidence, or bad self-esteem. In Heaven's case file, it was written a lot more accurately. Subject has been surrounded by lying glass since childhood. Status under siege, not defective. One day, while she was sitting on the floor tracing the same crack in the mirror with her finger, something shifted in the room. It was quiet at first. Not thunder, not a spotlight, just presence. The Holy Spirit stepped into the mirror house like a breeze that somehow had weight to it. He didn't kick the door in. He just came and sat beside her on the floor, right in the middle of the shards of all the words she'd believed. He didn't say, "Why don't you love yourself more?" He didn't say, "You need to be more confident." He pointed at one mirror where the words ugly and small had been etched for years, and he said, very calmly, like a judge reading a verdict, "Overruled." The words sank into the glass like ink into water. She frowned. "That's not how this works. These mirrors don't change." He tilted his head. "Watch." One by one, he started walking to the mirrors that had named her for so long. At the one that said unimportant, he pressed his hand to the surface and said overruled, chosen. The letters swam, blurred, and when they cleared, she saw new words written in a script she recognized from her quietest prayers. Called on purpose, not an accident. At the one that said, "You can't do anything right," he said overruled, trained. The scenes in that mirror rewound and replayed, but this time she saw the pattern. Every failure had also taught her a skill, a sensitivity, a pattern recognition no one else had. The glass relabeled itself, expert witness, forged in fire. He moved through the house like that, patient, thorough, not missing a single pane. Low self-esteem? Overruled, crowned. Bad self-image? Overruled, image bearer. Low confidence? Overruled, confident in me. Feeling inferior? Overruled, seated with the king. Feeling ugly? Overruled, handcrafted. Feeling small? Overruled, precise size for the mission. Feeling unimportant? Overruled, critical infrastructure. With every verdict, something in her chest that had been braced for years loosened. It was not instant, fairy tale, everything is fixed now. But it was legal, settled, written. Finally, he stopped in front of the biggest mirror in the whole house, the one that sat right by the door. This was the one she always checked before she went out anywhere. The one that decided how brave she was allowed to be that day. Across the top, in tall, mean letters, it said, "Don't draw attention. You will be mocked." He stood there for a long minute without touching it. "This one," he said softly, "has been fed by a lot of other people's fear." She swallowed. "It keeps me safe." He nodded, not arguing, just acknowledging the history in that glass. Then he looked at her in the reflection and spoke like a king addressing the entire courtroom. "I am the one who decides what shines in you. Not them." He raised his hand. Overruled. The glass didn't just blur this time. It shattered, not outward, not dangerous, but inward, like it suddenly remembered it was made to be a window, not a wall. The pieces folded back, melting into a clear, open frame. She flinched, waiting for the usual rush of shame. Nothing came. Instead, through that new opening, she could see the sky. Big, bright, full of color she hadn't known existed while she lived by warped glass. It was like someone had taken all the too much and not enough and set them on fire in the distance. And she was just seeing the glow. The Holy Spirit gestured toward the doorway. "Come see how I see you," he said. She took one step, then another. No cracking, no alarms. Outside, there weren't any mirrors at all, just a field and the sound of wings and this wild sense of space. She looked down at her own hands like she was seeing them for the first time. "Okay," she said slowly. "But what if I need someone to tell me I look okay? What if I need someone to say I'm doing a good job?" He shook his head, kind but firm. "You will enjoy encouragement," he said. "You are allowed to like it when people see you, but you will not need it to know who you are. That part is mine." He reached out and touched the center of her chest. The place that used to feel hollow and frantic filled up like somebody had quietly turned on a deep underground spring. New labels started etching themselves on the inside of her bones. not the outside of the glass. Beloved. Kept. Fire on purpose. Daughter whose voice is wanted. There was no audience, no platform, no comments section. No husband, no family, no church committee. Just her, the field, the king, and the spirit who had walked every room of her mirror house and stamped his verdict on each lie. You see, he said, when I change the words in you, no one on the outside can unchange them. They can agree or disagree, but they do not own the ink. She stood there a long time, feeling that spring in her chest, realizing how quiet it was without all the mirror whispers. She tested it a little, like tapping a new bridge with her foot. What if someone calls me vain? He smiled that I already considered that smile. Then their opinion will run into my ruling and fall flat. You don't have to fight them. You carry my paperwork. What if they think I'm ugly? They did not design your face, he said. I did. Their taste is not the standard. What if they don't like my fire? Then they don't like my fire, he said simply. And that is between them and me. Something unclenched so hard in her that she almost laughed. For the first time she realized, if the one who owns the whole court system has already written beautiful, wanted, useful, mine. Into her case file, no side comment from a human witness can edit that document. She could walk back into that little house of mirrors if she needed to, for old memories, for healing, for testimony. She could even pick up one of the shards and hold it up in a video one day and say, here's what I used to believe, and here's what he did. But she didn't live there anymore. She lived outside, in the field, under the sky, with a spring in her chest and a quiet, steady knowing that did not come from anyone's reaction. Her praise was to God. Her story was about God. The change in her was from God. And what God gave her, no one could take away, because it wasn't hanging on the walls anymore. It was written inside her, in ink that does not wash off. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders like a fire steed checking her perimeter, and said, half to herself and half to heaven, I don't actually need your mirror to tell me who I am. And somewhere, very far above that little house, the king smiled and wrote one more line in her file. Daughter understands jurisdiction.